Well, good evening and welcome to the 2000.
I've always been fascinated by the relationship between war and society, and it seemed to me that too often in our profession and in the general discussion of war and the discussion of society, we've tended to see them as very different things. We've tended to see war as an abnormality, as something that is not truly part of society, something to be deplored, something that we try and recover from as quickly as possible and move on. And I think that has been reflected in the way in which the study of war sometimes has been treated in the academic world, that we've tended to separate it out from society. Different societies fight their wars in different ways. The ways in which they fight those wars in turn affect societies. You think of the technological advances that have been made partly as a result of war. Think of the changes to the organization of society which have come about as a result of war. The increased centralization of government, for example, the extension of government power over so much of society is at least in part a response to the need to fight very large wars. And the capacity of governments to get the resources of society, to mobilize those resources, of course, has helped to make wars much longer. And so I think we need to look at the relationship between war and society as something that is constantly changing, very important, which is something that helps to move history forwards. Now, in the 19th century, there were significant changes in war, both in the ways in which wars were fought, the ways in which wars were conceived, and in the ways in which the resources of society were made available for wars. While Europe was changing, socially, politically, economically, the nature of war was also changing, and this, of course, was not something that is particularly surprising. Until the mid-19th century, wars were still fought very much in the way in which they had been fought. It was really after that science and technology and industrialization began to make a difference. But even before those great changes, which were going to have such an impact on war, you got, in the beginning of the 19th century, a changing relationship between the army, between the soldiers in the army and the citizens. We got a new notion that there was something called a citizen. People increasingly saw themselves not as subjects, but as citizens with full participation, or at least hoping for full participation in their own societies. Now, such